A number of things, because it was a bunch of things cobbled together. So the one that actually got it for me might have been a TJ Maxx commercial that I did with Ben. It was a back-to-school ad, and we got cut out. But I do remember really well. That summer of '87, the SAG card was $600, and
wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, and I had saved, and that's how much money I had exactly, and it raised. I think I got it in June or July, but whichever month I got it in, it went to $800, and I didn't have the extra $200, and I went to my father, and I asked him to please. I told him what was going on, and he said, you've done so well, and you've taken all this initiative, because they didn't really want me to do this professionally at that age. And he gave me the $200, and I always remember that. The first thing that happened was the script arrived, and I hadn't worked in a really long time. I took about 18 months off. I didn't mean to. It just there wasn't really anything that, with the exception of Interstellar, which was an unbilled cameo, in which I played a guy stranded by himself on a planet.
I like to believe they're brothers.
Yeah.
This poor family keeps
Right.
losing astronauts.
Very dysfunctional family. But this script showed up, and I hadn't read the book, and I knew nothing about it, and Ridley wasn't attached at that point. In fact, it was the screenwriter Drew Goddard who had also directed The Cabin in the Woods, and which I hadn't seen at that point. And I read the script, and I got to the end and literally got to the last page and just turned it back over and read it again, because I laughed through the whole thing, and I couldn't put it down. I was so, I was on the edge of my seat, and I just thought it was a fantastic screenplay, and and I write also, so I wanted to see kind of how he'd done it, and I turned around and read it again, and then I met with Drew, and he got called to direct Sinister Six, which was something he'd been wanting to do for his entire adult life.
Wait,
so,
you don't mean a sequel to Sinister? It's a movie called Sinister Six?
Called Sinister
Oh, okay, I was like, they're up to 6 now?
Oh, Sinister the movie. Oh, no. No, this was like based on a comic book, and all I knew was it was like his dream job. And so he left the project after we had one meeting about it. And so I thought it would go away, and then a week later, somehow the script had found its way to Ridley, and he read it, and I got this phone call, Ridley Scott wants to do The Martian. And so I just, I went to his office, and I mean, I literally walked in, and we'd never met.
Really?
Yeah, and he said, we've never met. And I said, I know. And he said, the script is great. And I said, yeah. And he goes, and he goes, it's fucking great. And I go, yeah. And he goes, why aren't we making this? And I said, I don't know. And that was it. And that's how, it was like 20-second interaction, and we were making the movie.
That's like the best audition ever.
Yeah, that is the great part about my career now, is I don't have to audition anymore.
Really, do you remember the last time you did audition?
I remember auditioning for The Rainmaker in 1997. And and it was terrifying. I mean, at that point, I'd been auditioning solidly for 12 years, and that was the most high pressure. And I'd done features at that point. I'd done a couple cable TV movies, and I still was I went to Memphis to audition for Francis, and I remember because I was auditioning against Edward Norton.
Wow.
And Edward had, when Primal Fear came along, that was obviously, to all of us in LA, that was like every young actor. We said, this is it. It was one of the reasons Ben and I wrote Good Will Hunting, because we realized after we didn't get Primal Fear and we got close, that those parts just don't come around for unknown actors. It's very hard to get through the whole pecking order of established Hollywood and then have it somehow miss all those actors and then end up, and then if it does, it's like, it's like the 10,000 of us hyenas down there, like going for it. I mean, I hired a dialect coach with money I did not have to try to get that part, and Edward got it, and deserved to get it, and was brilliant in the movie, and it launched his career. But I mean, at that point, he'd done the Milos Forman movie. He'd done, and I remember my agent, who's still my agent, Patrick Weitzel, said to me, I think there are 3 girls that they're reading. And they've got 2 guys, one of them's Edward Norton, so you're not getting the part. He said, I think they need a 3rd guy to pair with the girl, with the 3rd actress that they're auditioning. He goes, I give it a 2 to 5% chance, but you have to get on a plane right now to Memphis. And I said, yeah, great. And I went to the airport and I got on the plane, and there was something good about that, freedom to just, because I wasn't getting the part, and somehow in that freedom I think it helped me get it.
Well, even just to get close. I mean, I don't know if that's any consolation when you don't get the part, but...
It is I will say, for years I got close, and there were many jobs where I was the director's first choice, and I heard it from the director directly, which was very nice to feel like, okay, well, the creative boss in this situation really wants me. But the studio said, no fucking way. But that's okay. It's enough to keep you going and say, okay, well, I'm not in the wrong business. It's just, it hasn't happened yet. And that was, again, why we wrote Good Will Hunting. We were just in a reactive business that was not, look, the business doesn't want you. You know what I mean? It just doesn't want any of us. It's brutal, and how do you break through at that moment? It's just really hard, and people do it in all kinds of different ways. We created Project Greenlight in large part to try to create a new avenue. And we certainly haven't solved it.
Not yet.
Those movies are just. They were, and they, I was born in 1970, and so those movies they meant something in my life. I mean, they were movies that made me want to make movies. And they hold up. I mean, you watch them now, and they're just, when I knew I was going to work with him, I watched a bunch of the movies, but I started with Alien and Blade Runner, and then I said to my 17-year-old, you ever see Alien? You ever see Blade Runner? Just so I could watch them again. They're really incredible films, and that was the thing, with this part, because I'm alone a lot on screen, and I'd never done that, and that was, I felt like it was a bit of a risk, but that risk was really mitigated by being with Ridley. I mean, he was always kind of as close as you are to me, and when you're in the hands of a master director like that, you're in pretty good shape. Yeah.
On IMDb, it'll probably be up there.
Right. As far as if there's a U.S. casting director, it may just be a London person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great work.
I met you years ago at the place called the Continental.
Yeah.
Come out.
Yeah.
And I said to you, where should I get away to write? So to drive back like you just have to. Awesome. Yeah.